Okay, question number 39 here. Says the table below shows the cost of a pizza based on the number of toppings. Alright, so we have this table that gives us number of toppings and the cost. Alright, and it says which function represents the cost of a pizza with n toppings. Now, if you look at these expressions, B, C, and D look pretty normal, but C has this weird notation here. So what we want to do is we want to get this simplified, alright, because they have something times something in parentheses. We don't need that on here. So let's simplify this out a little bit. So that'll equal 12 plus, and we have 1.5 times n minus 1, so I do 1.5 times n, which gives me 1.5n. And then I do the 1.5 times negative 1, which is minus 1.5. Okay? And then I want to simplify this just one more step. 12 minus 1.5, I can combine these since they're just numbers. 12 minus 1.5 gives me 10.5, and I have plus 1.5n. Okay, so once we simplify this, now that looks more like something we would normally expect with an equation here. And if you look, all of these just have n to the first power, no like squared or anything to the x power, so that means these are linear equations. Alright, so we expect a constant rate of change. So let's go up here to the table and let's see what happens. So every time, so let's think about this. This is kind of like our x and this is like our y. They use n and c instead, that's fine. And every time we add one topping, let's see what happens to the cost. It looks like the cost goes up by $1.50. To go from 12 to 13.50, that's $1.50. And if we add another topping, we're going to add another $1.50, and so on and so on. So that means, remember, the slope for any linear equation is given by the change in y over the change in x. Okay, so the change in the y's, the change in the cost is $1.50, and the change in the x is just 1. Well, 150 divided by 1 is just 1.50 or 1.5. Okay, so we're looking for an equation with a slope of 1.5. So that cancels out c and it cancels out d. So it's either b or a. Okay. Now, if you look up here, the cost looks like it starts at 12. So a lot of people would be tempted to go with b. However, I'm going to go ahead and tell you that is not correct. The reason being, 12 would be what we the starting value needs to be what we expect when there are no toppings on the pizza. Okay? And realize that they're starting you out with one topping. They're not showing you how much a pizza costs with no toppings. So we need to kind of work backwards here. So we're going to take away one topping, all right, to get 0 toppings. And that means I need to take away $1.50, since that's how much each topping costs. And 12 minus 150, if you were to write that out, $12 minus $1.50. You could solve this out. You get 0, borrow 1, and 10 minus 5 is 5. It's supposed to be a 0. And 1 minus 1 is 0. Bring down the 1, so we get 1050. Okay? And 1050 would simplify to 10.5, so that's fine as well. So that means the correct answer would be A. Now, if you didn't simplify this, you may have had no idea what this is right here. Okay? But if you simplify it, now this becomes a pretty easy problem. All we need to find is the slope and the starting value when we have 0 toppings, which we did. Slope was 1.5, and the starting cost was $10.50, which is like 10.5, and so it matches up perfectly with expression A. We just had to do a little work by simplifying that. So if you see any answers that are not simplified, go through and simplify the answer, then it's going to be much easier to match up. Otherwise, we would have had some trouble trying to do this one. Okay. Alternatively, one other thing you could have done was to pick a number of toppings. For instance, you could have picked 2 toppings and just plug that in where the n is in each of these expressions and see which one it matches up with. Alright, for instance, if I plug in 2 for this one, 12 times 2 would be 24, and a 2-topping pizza doesn't cost $24. Here, 12 plus 2 would have given me 14. That's not $13.50, so that doesn't work either. 1.5 times 2 would be 3, and 3 plus 12 is 15. And again, that's not $13.50, so I could also cancel out B, C, and D by just plugging in a number of toppings and seeing that it doesn't give me the right cost. And whereas here, if you do 12 plus 1.5 times 2 minus 1, well, what's 2 minus 1? That's just 1. So 1.5 times 1, still 1.5. Add 1.5 to 12, and that would give you 13.5 or $13.50 is the cost. So that works out as well. All right. So again, just if you get one of these and you forget what to do, just go to guess and check method. And what I mean by that is take an x value from a table where you know the y value that goes with it and plug it in and see if it matches up. Now you may have to do more than one. So for instance, if 2 of them end up working out, when you plug in a number of toppings, try a different one, because it'll probably only work with one. In other words, like let's say A and C happen to give me the right price. If I picked another number of toppings, only one of those would have worked. Okay, so just again, either simplify it and then just match it up like we did here, or you can go through and just sort of do the plug and chug method, where you plug it in and find whichever Y value matches up with it. Okay, so the correct answer was A.